Good afternoon and welcome to the latest in our series of HOP career webinars, the webinars that are brought to you, students and young people in Hertfordshire and the surrounding areas, to help inform and inspire you about particular career avenues. Today we're going to be talking about careers as a web designer, and we've got three fantastic panelists who can tell you about their roles as a web designer or the courses that they offer in one of our fabulous further education colleges around Hertfordshire. That might help you with those pathways into that career. So first of all, a bit of housekeeping. We really want you to be familiar with the HOP website. So maybe you've never heard of it before, maybe your school or college tutors talked to you about it. HOP stands for the Hertfordshire Opportunities Portal. So it is a website that has been designed for young people and residents of Hertfordshire. Have a look at our website, have a look at our social media handles that you can see on your screen right now. So this webinar is going to run for about an hour. We are recording it live. We can't see or hear any of you that are in attendance today, but you can communicate with us. The way that you do that is on your dashboard. You should see one that says questions. If you open that out, it will open up a text box where you can type your question. That will only be visible to me, and then I can relay that question on to our panelists. If there's someone in particular you want to ask that question to, just put their name at the start of it, then I'll know to direct it to them. So please do get those questions in. I know a few of you have submitted questions when you registered for that, so we are going to answer that one. There's a very good technical question, which I just ran through our panelists a moment or so ago, so they are considering how they're going to answer that for you very shortly. Otherwise, enjoy the webinar. So it's being recorded. If you can't stay through the end of it, we will go on for about an hour until about 5:30. It will be available to watch on the HOP platform from tomorrow. So if you are watching it and you think I've got a friend who should really watch this as well, then please do let them know so that they can access it as well and watch the recording. But of course, by watching it live as you are, it means that you have the opportunity to interact with our panelists. So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring our panelists in. I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves to you, then we'll get into the webinar. So first of all, good afternoon to Jade. Fantastic you can join us today. Jade, can you introduce yourself?
Thank you very much, Gareth. Hi everybody, I'm Jade Thomas. I run Eau Rouge Design, which is a branding web design agency in Buckingham. I've run it for 23 years, so I've worked through many different iterations of web design in that time, with my first website being built in 1996 in HTML code. So I still do websites for probably half of my business. I'm very much sort of print and web design based, still quite equal, but I love designing websites for my clients.
Fantastic, thanks Jade, delighted you can join us. Now we've not got one, but we've got two tutors from North Herts College, and they're both called Rob. I'm not sure if that's a prerequisite to teach at North Herts College or not, but we've got two of them here today. Rob Chambers, good afternoon, thanks for joining us. Tell us a little bit about you.
Hello there, I'm Rob Chambers and I'm a tutor at North Herts College. I teach on several of their programs across the way. So including the BTEC courses, their new T-level course, and our foundation degree actually that we have rerun in partnership with University of Hertfordshire. It's none of them are exclusively web design, but there are elements of web design in each of those courses. I tend to specialize in more in software development, which obviously covers web design and development. So yeah, some knowledge of what can you expect to see in classrooms and so on with us.
Absolutely, thank you. And then Rob Tassam, good afternoon.
Hi, I'm also a lecturer at IIT North Herts College. My specialism isn't actually web design, but I am the program lead for the T-level program. So talk about this is a new program that the government's pushed out, which all colleges are running this year. Actually, quite a lot of our students that are going out to placement in around about the beginning of November are related to web design. So even though it's a software focused course, there's a lot of web design implemented in with it. So I'll be here to answer questions about basically the different courses we do and how we engage with employers and things like that.
Absolutely. Thank you for those introductions. Now, I should say that Rob and Rob are here from us from North Herts College today. All 4 colleges in Hertfordshire, so that's Hertford Regional College for those of you living in the east of the county, Oaklands College in St Albans and Welwyn Garden City, and West Herts College, which is in Watford and Hemel Hempstead. They will all run very, very similar courses. So don't worry about if anything that Rob and Rob say to you today, you think I really want to access that course, but I don't live anywhere near Stevenage or Hitchin. Have a look at your local FE college. They will almost certainly run a similar course as well. We can't get them all on the webinar at the same time, so we tend to rotate it around the different colleges. Now, just to reiterate, you can submit your own questions as we go through here today. There's a number of sort of stock questions and discussions that I'll lead on, but there may be some things that you want to know about. So this is an example of a couple of the questions that came in during registration. So the first one there is, it's a very technical one. I'm going to ask Jade to answer that one to the best of her ability in a minute. But the second one's probably quite a good starting point for us, really. So again, Jade, I'll come to you first, and then Rob and Rob, when you answer this one, perhaps if you just answer it slightly more generically about careers in IT and computing, perhaps more broadly. But Jade, what inspired you to start? Did you go to university to learn about web design? And how did you realise that that's what you want to do?
Well, I'm going to start with the second question and say I'm way too old to have gone to university to study web design. I went to university and I studied graphic design, creative media, and actually web design didn't really come about until after I've left university, but I've always been interested in design and creativity. So my love of web design came through when I had my first job. Basically, we were asked to build a website for one of our design clients. And in my little agency that I was working for, we were like, yeah, we're up for the challenge, we can do this. And we just learned on the hop. So what inspired me to start was the fact that we were doing branding and graphic design work for this client already. So we understood the client. And, you know, we're now talking 1996. So websites weren't massively creative at the time, but it was a whole new learning curve for us, which is a really exciting place to be. And how did I realize that's what I wanted to do? Primary school, I was drawing logos and shop fronts and everything. It was always going to be a creative career for me.
Sure. Okay. Rob Chambers, I mean, Jade's talking there about the creative side of this, and I think sometimes there's misconception that IT and computing is sort of the polar opposite of creativity. But I guess from your side and from a software design, creativity is an important part of, you know, of IT and computing in all areas, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. It's often you get that when you start out, you think it's all very mathematical, very scientific, very methodical, and those elements are there, of course. But it's programming is an art. One of the most influential programming books that's written in years ago was called The Art of Programming, and so it's there definitely is a lot of creativity in there, especially when you look at things like web development and developing pieces of software for people to use. You want to entice users with, not just because you want it to look good, but because you want it to work well, and that's how that goes. To follow on basically from what you were saying there, yes, the university stuff is a thing. It does happen there. In terms of web design specifically, it's there aren't a huge amount of courses that are just that. There are some. There certainly are some in universities, like degree level courses, that are just web design, but most of them would focus on several aspects of software development, which would also include web design. Obviously, you could specify those are the choices that you want to go, the options you want to go in, as most university courses would offer options to which courses that you want to head towards, or which direction you want to head in.
To add to that, so basically you've got generic computer science courses or computer technology courses that the first 2 years you will then do basically like a mixed group of modules, which like programming, cyber, web design and things like that. And then in the third year, or even in the second year, you start to specialize in something that you want to go into. And then sometimes when you specialize into it, your final year degree name essentially changes based on your specialism. So computer science is basically like a generic one. Computer technologies is also kind of like a generic one, but it's focused on a different part of IT. You do get, as I said, like Rob mentioned, you do get university courses that do focus specifically on web design. They're called like something like web design development or something like that. There are specific ones, and most universities will probably do at least one, but each university, and you can kind of, there's a lot of stuff online about it, but each university tend to have a specialism in what they do in computing. So they have like some are better than others, for example. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure, for example, Manchester has quite a good robotics program, for example. So some universities specialize in certain subjects because that's where their specialism comes from with their own staff. But most universities will offer generic IT, computer science, which have programming, which has then web design units for those who want to specialize in it. But then a lot of universities still do web design as a main path. But you'll often find when you do web design as a main path, you'll think, oh, hang on, but there's a lot of like, there's database here, there's programming here, there's UI there, there's things. So you think you get a bit, even though it says web design, there's a lot of parts of it. There's lots of parts just the lid of web design. There's more than just what the lid says, basically.
Sure. Okay. I think that's a really good introduction. That really sets the context nicely. Jade, I'm going to come to you probably for most of the questions in this section here, and it's a day in the life of a web designer. So, can you tell? I mean, you set up your own company, so you're your own boss, aren't you? There will be probably majority of web designers. Is that the case for them, or do they tend to be employed in-house by companies?
Oh, that's an interesting question, actually. I don't know the stats, but what I do know is that there is a hugely growing number of us that run our own businesses, because actually we have the flexibility and ability to do that nowadays. We've all got the technology at home, and then it's just the willingness to learn, the inquisitiveness to know what's kind of happening and what's best for clients. I would say what initially got me interested in my role is the fact that I really like to help people, and whether that's through branding or web design, I want them to be able to understand who their ideal clients are. So my clients come to me and they want to make an impact in their market, and the way to do that is to understand the ideal client and take that ideal client on a really cool journey with them to answer all their questions and hesitations before they are in a position to purchase from my clients. And really clever web design can really help you be that storefront when you're not actually talking to them directly yourselves. So the user experience is so important, and I've always loved being part of the full journey with my clients, whether it's branding or web design. I want them to get the most out of the asset that they sort of having designed by me. So that's my initial interest, was that full journey and being able to really help people. Day to day, I would say that I am either building out web pages. One thing you need to know about me is that I niche. So my ideal client are really scared of the internet. They're not particularly technical, and I've learned this over the years as I've built various different websites. And so this is why I niche to a particular web build platform that's called Squarespace, that many of you will have heard of. But for me, it's the perfect platform for my ideal clients, because I can build a beautiful looking website with functionality that can grow as their business grows, but I can actually hand it over to my clients and do video learning and help them to have the confidence to actually build their own pages, create their own content, add a blog post, add a product in their shop. But I'm designing and building, but what the most important bit is the strategy, the navigational journey and doorways of their ideal clients as to where they want to go. So the visuals is actually the second most important part of the job. It's the user experience. And actually, that I would say is really enjoyable. It's actually knowing that you've nailed that. You've actually got the customer journey and you've got all the questions that they might want to ask answered within the website. Challenging, I would say one of the most challenging parts of my job is getting content out of my clients. I have a way of managing that, but that's been trial and error over the years to really try and get the content. And sometimes I write a bit of it, sometimes we get a copywriter in so that we've got the tone of voice exactly as their ideal client needs to hear. But it's quite challenging getting content out of a busy business.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And we've had a really good question that's just come in, actually, Jade, and it's how long does it take, brackets on average, and appreciate, it might be hard for you to quantify an average to make a full website? Or perhaps if it's easier, think what's the quickest you've ever designed a website in? So from that first meeting to the client to it being live, and what potentially is the longest it's taking to get from A to Z?
I would say that on average, if you get all your ducks in a row, 2 weeks is a really good time scale to actually build out a website, test it and launch it with all the content. And that includes design, strategy, build, filling in the content, launch, test. But actually, that really needs a lot of pre-work before you see anything visual for that to happen. Worst case scenario is that you're halfway through the build, they've paid you the money and they ghost you, and you are then chasing for content. And it's actually a really funny position to be in, but that has happened more than.
Yeah, so I think what's interesting about what you said there, Jade, is that your time isn't exclusively in front of a screen designing a website. A lot of your time is spent actually with the client, finding out who they are, how they want to be presented. So again, on average, how much of your time in designing that website would be spent actually with the client, and how much would be spent in front of your screen?
Well, actually, I'm a bit sneaky. I've automated some of that interview process into an online course. So actually, a lot of the question and answering is happening in their own time. But before I did that, I would definitely spend a good few hours at various different Zoom or in-person meetings, kind of drawing out who their ideal client was and what they needed to feel and what they needed to learn. But now I've actually automated some of that. So I would say it used to be probably 30% conversation, 70% build, but I've streamlined that now. So it's probably 10-15% conversation. They then go and do their homework and then I build.
Sure. I mean, of course, you work for yourself, so therefore you're responsible for everything. But there might be larger web design companies out there who have got perhaps a business partnerships team who have the conversations, and then your technical people who just involved in the software. Is that fairly common for web design agencies?
I think so. I think people can niche down and specialize so that they have the most impact within the area that they work in.
Sure. So Rob Tatton, let me go to Rob T. Do you think, is that something that your students, when they start a course, perhaps if they're thinking about web or software design, do they consider that client relationship aspect of it? Is that something that you cover within the course?
So the first part of the question, no, students tend to don't even really think about the actual human aspect of the job. They always focus on, oh, I want to learn how to do this, I want to learn how to create that, and they kind of forget that there's people that you're doing this for. You're not just doing this in a room on your own. You are actually creating it for someone else, or if like you actually work for a company, you're doing it for your manager or you're doing it for your team. So yes, generally there's always that misconception of, oh, I'm just going to learn to code and that's it. But the course, or all course at North College and other FE courses, part of the course is actually being able to communicate, being able to actually talk to stakeholders, being able to get information about them, and being able to do that confidently and well, it leads to other avenues. If you can talk to a client and get information about what you want them to do for you, and you want to do for them, then you can do an interview for a job, for example. So it's the whole communication skill is something they have to learn quite a lot realistically, because they have to use it in so much aspects of IT, especially web design and other creative aspects as well. Because being able to talk to the client and being able to actually get the actual answers from them, that what they want, can be quite difficult. And it's the same thing when you talk to anyone in every other aspects of IT. If you're in a customer service environment, they are your client. So what do they need? What do you need to fix them? What do you need to create for them? You're a game developer. The people that buy your game, they are your clients. Maybe it's not face to face. It's not as face to face as Jade, for example, because hers is more bespoke because she's independent. But if you're working in a company, you're either you're making a website for the whole company to use, or you're making it for a client for them, for example. So there's a lot of communication. Whereas it could be face to face, it could be remote, it could be an online form, it could be a combination of all of them. And as IT's got more complex and more useful, I suppose, in some ways, this is evolved because of it. Like we're in an online call now. You go back 20 years, that wasn't a thing. it was all face to face. But now everything can be done by emails, online forms. and it makes it, these are all different ways of communication that students have to be able to learn to use effectively and manage. So yeah, that is part of the course. Yeah.
Sure. I mean, Joe, let me just come back up to you with sort of a follow-up question. You've probably touched on this already, actually, but what are the most rewarding aspects of the job for you? And then equally, what are the more challenging sides that maybe people don't realise when they think they want to go into web design?
Okay, so I've got a phrase that I call brand posture, and it works for websites as well, which is when somebody really feels that their business is now portrayed so authentically online that they are really proud of it. You can see they stand taller, and it's the same with branding as well, to try and get that sort of developed so that people really understand how your ideal clients need to feel. But ultimately, it's so rewarding to see somebody who's supremely proud of their website. They're proud of it as a shop front, but they're proud of it as a communication tool, a marketing tool, directly into the minds and hearts of their ideal clients. So that is a supremely satisfying part of the business. And then when it comes to challenging, I think it's when people want to serve everybody, which actually means that they're talking to nobody. So it's about, again, not necessarily having to niche, but it's about understanding who you want to talk to and the tone of voice and the communication and the grammar that you would use to make somebody feel like part of your tribe, or that you get them, you understand them, because that's key. We're dealing with computers here, but the authenticity and the humanity has to come through.
Sure. Okay. I think that's a really, really good answer. Remember, if you're watching this live at the moment, do submit your questions. We've already had a really good one earlier. We had the question that came in through registration, which I'm going to come back to about AI. I'm going to give everyone a bit more time to think about their answer for that one, because I know that was quite thought-provoking. What I want to go and talk about now, though, is pathways into web design. And so we've got Rob and Rob here from North Harts College. So let me bring Rob Chambers in. First of all, Rob, firstly, I mean, you said that there isn't a bespoke web design course that's offered, so it's that wider understanding of IT and computing. But just again, give us a little bit more detail about the different IT and computing courses that North Harts College offers.
Yeah, so at the moment, yeah, we do the T level, which is the new course. That's just been we've just started running that this year. It's the government has pushed that out quite recently. It was last year or something it started.
Sure. And what's the full title of that T-level course, Rob?
So the one we do is the digital. Well, it's actually just called digital, funny enough.
Digital,
but
yeah.
It's basically, it covers a lot of aspects of software design, development, and stuff within sort of digital environments. Has a lot to do with so employers as well. So employers are involved right from the beginning. So every student that comes in has some hands-on work experience with the genuine employers in the actual workplace, as well as spending plenty of time in the classroom and learning new skills and so on. Some of the other ones, of course, that we run, which are due to phase out a little bit, but I'll mention it anyway, is the BTEC diploma courses. And they're kind of quite well established. Not that people would realize what a BTEC is, but it's again, that's lots of different aspects. We tend to do the one we're running is actually a computing science, or computing rather, not with the science, and that covers a lot of aspects of sort of general, how does a computer work, and then more specific software development, or even networking and hardware and so on. But then the software development often involves some of the stuff we were talking earlier about, the UX design, user experience design, and how do you relate to your actual users, who's going to use this piece of software that you're making, or this product that you're developing. And as Rob said earlier, there kind of is a bit of a disconnect when students come in. They don't think about that. They're thinking, oh, I'm just going to create this thing. And they're thinking from their own point of view, this is what I'm going to make because that's what I want to do. But there is the element of, well, who is going to actually use this, and what do they want out of it? And that is involved in a lot of our development courses. We do spend quite a fair bit of time talking about that. How do you work out what the user really wants, and will they actually use this product that you make? Yeah, so pathways from that, as I did mention earlier, but we have the foundation degree run in partnership with University of Hertfordshire. That is sort of offers a further pathways into that, so either software development, which could also include web design, or more towards the desktop design if you're not looking at web. But again, so like I said before, none of them are specifically web related, but they all have some web content or web design content in, and certainly overall user design, design for users and user experiences and so on. How do you actually manage, what does a user want in the end of it, which is what Jade and Rob were both saying earlier.
For sure. Okay. I just want to take the opportunity to just explain what a T-level is, because possibly you might be watching it, you might have heard of T-levels. Some of you might even have schools that offer T-levels. So they are an equivalent of an A-level. In fact, they're the equivalent of 3 A-levels. So if you do a T-level, that is about the same amount of time as maybe your friends who are studying 3 different A-levels would take up. All 4 colleges in Hertfordshire offer a range of T-levels. So they come in different shapes and sizes. They cover slightly different areas. Digital is one of the key areas that they come in, and effectively you are in college most of the time, probably 80% of the time, but the other 20% of that time you'll actually be out with an employer. So you'll actually be out in industry doing something that is connected to what you're learning. So T-levels, they are fairly new. Do have a look a little bit more about them. Definitely all 4 colleges offer them. Rob Tatham, when students coming to or wants to enroll onto one of your courses, what are you looking for them? Are there particular GCSE subjects you would have expected them to have studied? Are there perhaps different sort of skills or qualities you'd want to know or see in them before they enrolled?
So we're left at specific grades. So at each college, and not just ours, but every college, the North Herts, we do different levels. So we do entry all the way to level 3, and obviously we do the higher levels as well. So level 3, which is where me and Rob mainly teach, for the BTEC variant or the vocational variant, we expect 5 GCSEs at 4 and above. Whereas if you want to do the T level, we expect 5 GCSEs at 5 and above. Now, the requirement isn't to have already done IT at school, because not everyone decides when they're younger they want to get into computing, and they decide later. So it's helpful. It just means that you're on a slightly higher, you're slightly better off than other students when you're first joining, but it's not like a firm requirement to actually have already come in with an IT knowledge, because we do kind of start from the beginning and work their way up and push them to like excel them skills. A lot of the courses that we run, T level and the normal level 3, they have a lot of projects based things. So similar to what Jade does, you have like a scenario and they have to create an app or a game or a website based on the pick scenario. They have to do everything from the beginning. They have to plan something with a Gantt chart. They have to think about stakeholders, they have to think about cost requirements, and then they have to do testing, and then they have to create it and then test it again. And then the same thing. T-level works differently in the sense there's a client involved. So the client will be involved with the process. So they will actually look at the thing they've created and essentially make judgment on it, whether we can use it or we can't use it. In regards to other things other than obviously our grades, it's having an open mind, I suppose, is a good attitude to have in computing. As I said, too many students think like, oh, we're just going to be on a computer typing away the whole time. Well, it's not just that. You need to be open to all aspects of IT, because it's, IT can take you anywhere. You might join the course wanting to learn web design, and that might take you to completely somewhere else afterwards. So you have to be kind of an open-minded would be quite a good thing. Being creative does help, because creative can be creative in the actual creating sense. So you're gonna create a website, you have to be quite creative to write a website to make it look nice. So obviously coding is only a part of it. Actually visually it needs to look good. But the same thing with apps. You create an app, if you haven't got a good eye for how the app should look and how a user is going to use it, is going to cause problems. But also being creative in being able to deal with problems. So you can't be rigid. Like, if a problem comes your way and the normal way to fix it doesn't work, then you have to be able to create yourself, think, okay, how do I fix this? So it's like problem solving. Being creative and problem solving is a good mindset to have. And obviously we all hope for maturity, so the students to be open-minded with a mature outlook on what they want to achieve. Not every student that joins our course, you know, knows what they want to do. In some cases, they know they like playing games. That's sometimes they don't actually know what their aspects of gaming they like. They just know they like doing stuff on computers. So going to a college, for example, is a good way to open your mind to different aspects of IT, and you can specialize in based on what you like and dislike. So, for example, when I did college and before I went to university, I did programming. It wasn't my bag. I didn't really like it, so I never specialized in it. I did it quite a bit, but you know, it's because I wanted to learn more as much as I can. So students kind of get the atmosphere. They go into the courses and they try different areas and they realize, you know, I really like doing that. And because of that, we try and support and nurture that type of thing. So we try to find work experience, for example, whether it's T-level or normal vocational, where they'll go to a client and maybe make them a website. Whereas with T-level, as you mentioned before, it's more employer engagement. They spend at least 45 days or 300 hours with an employer. Whereas with the vocational, it's only about the requirement's only 30 hours. But again, that's only a requirement. It can do more. Sometimes it has led to jobs, for example, or part-time or even summer work, because that often happens.
Sure. Okay. Rob Chambers, thinking about destinations of your students, we've spoken about misconceptions about IT, perhaps more generally. There's also this really terrible misconception that sometimes people have that if you go to college, it means you're not going to go to university afterwards. So typically, what are the destinations that your students will go on to once they complete an IT and computing course?
No, that's we certainly do get students leaving to university. Not all do. Yeah, we've had some find apprenticeships. Some just find employment. Our level 3 leavers, for example, the BTEC finishes and so on. We've had some go to local employers, you know, such as even the local council. We've had some people finding IT roles there. As we often tell, almost every company now has some sort of computing element or an IT department or some sort of support in IT. Whether that's hardware based or if it's someone who's managing the website, it could well be. So whichever what the company specializes in. But yeah, we do have quite a few of our students. So probably roughly half of our leavers go to university or at least sort of higher education in that regard, whether it's HND or perhaps full degree. It depends on as Rob was saying, on their chosen subject, if they prefer certain things over another.
Yeah, sure.
We also have the apprenticeship route. So we would part of our service as the college, we do have student services department, which is helping people find where is the direction that you want to head in from here. You know, how can you sort of steer them towards an apprenticeship option if that's what they want. And well, we can't guarantee that they'll get a place because, you know, it's not up to us, but we can help steer someone in the right direction. Yeah, and that's always the same with the UCAS stuff to applying to universities and so on. Yeah, we do have that.
Yeah, good. So really good range of destinations and places that your students will go on to. Jade, I wanted to ask you a question. I mean, Rob's spoken about some of the characteristics that good students will have. They'll be good problem solvers. They'll be creative. But with that in mind, what experiences can people gain perhaps at home whilst they're still at school that will help inform them about whether web design is something they can do? Is there sort of free software they can play around with to help design things at home? To experiment?
That's an interesting question. I would say there's lots of different types of software, and you know, you can pick up tutorials on YouTube, and actually what you need is a passion to actually learn and the willingness to just give it a go, because it's really easy to put a website up online for very little money, and you learn as you go. What is really effective is if you actually build out a whole customer persona first, so that you're actually solving a problem. As we've talked about problem solving, all design is problem solving, whether it's print, branding, web design, whatever. So it's much better to, rather than say, ooh, we're going to create something pretty or cool, actually to have the problem in mind that you try and solve, because actually if you're starting to build a portfolio, which is super important for any young designer, you know, people aren't going to just look at it and go, oh, that looks nice. They're going to want to know why, the reasons behind why you've made the navigation like this, or the structure like that, or the visual like this. And that's really key, because if you can show your workings and the reasoning behind your decisions, that's worth more, in my eyes, certainly, than what the end thing looks like, because actually the visuals are really quick to change, but the structure and the strategy is really important. So I would say, yeah, creating websites or games or apps or whatever it is that you're into, creating your own portfolio in your own time will stand you head and shoulders above your competitors at that sort of entry level, because it's fun, it shows that you're passionate about it, you're interested, you're willing to take risks and be inquisitive about it, and, you know, get on and build stuff and learn along the way. Another key thing I would say is it's really useful to be able to take feedback and criticism, because when you're talking about anything in the visual world, people have got their own viewpoints upon it. Best to take criticism or feedback from somebody who, say, that particular website is aimed at, might not be your mum, whereas you might ask her, but actually to find somebody that is in the industry and say, you know, what do you think? Does this work for you? Would this work for your clients? But being able to take on board feedback is a key part of web design and any design. So it's about being okay with people feeding back on stuff that might not quite fit your visual vision, and work with it.
Sure. I mean, look, I mean, web design is obviously very, very important for a company. I'm going to get this wrong, but I'm sure I heard a statistic a few years ago, which is that generally if it takes people more than 3 clicks to find what they want on a website, they'll just go out of it. So that user journey is really important. I mean, Jade, is it possible for you to ever switch off from this? Are you constantly sort of critiquing websites that you go on for sort of business or personal use? And what are the common things that maybe you think, yeah, they need to have a think about that, or that's not quite right?
Yeah, yeah, totally. No, can't switch off, I'm afraid. And it's about the user experience. If it's too complicated, or they haven't made it clear who this page is for, or there's too many words on it and it's written for robots, or there are too many links, or I can't find the information that I'm looking for succinctly, then in my mind that website needs a massive overhaul. If it, you know, basically it's not fit for the function, which is for the human to navigate to the bit of information that they want.
Sure. I mean, Rob Chambers, is that something you'd look at in course? I mean, you obviously don't necessarily name them if you do, but do you have stock websites that you use as examples for students to explore where you think maybe there's some work to be done on that one, or there's some faults with that, or equally are there really good exemplar ones that you use to talk to students about?
Yeah, we do. We often we change them every so often. We tend to look around and just think, well, what do we look at? Obviously, if we had a really bad example and then somebody fixed their website, then we don't use that one. Well, we might say, oh, look, here's how they fixed it, and this is what they did. We might, if we can still see the old one, for example, we might do that. But we tend to pick out a whole bunch of range of things, from something really simple like just the Google homepage, basically the Google search bar, just saying, well, how does that work? You know, and then we might go for something else, because a lot of people might not think about that because it's such a simple tool. It's such a simple website with not much on it. And they think, well, that's probably its strength. But that's you can get straight to what you want. But then there are other things that are not so. And maybe not mention names, but yeah, but there's things. Yeah, we tend to find examples every so often, like different ones every so. But sometimes I just take a screenshot and just keep something and say, oh, here's one from a few years ago, you know, and I'll say this was something that we saw a while back, but even if it's not their live website anymore, I still might say this is something we used to have. It might be our own in that regard. There we go.
Yeah, so look, for those of you watching at the moment, this is something you're interested in, be curious, go and have a look at some websites, have a look at our HOP website. If you've got any feedback about the functionality of our HOP website, have a look at it. Please do let us know. We're always looking for ways to try and improve it. I mean, I suppose equally the obvious ones to have a look at for you is have a look at your school and college websites as well, because they are, I guess, sections of that are designed for you. Go and give your school some constructive feedback about what they might do with the website to make it more user friendly.
Yeah, that's something to point out there. I think it's most of the time, most of those websites they often have a feedback section. There's a little link that says like, tell us how we're doing or something like that. Especially if it's something that you had to log into and access. So like the government websites, for example, if you ever log into a .gov or whatever and type something, they almost always have a little bit afterwards. Would you mind filling out a quick survey to tell us how we did? How did this website work? Could you find what you were looking for, and how easy was it, and all that sort of stuff. And that's the feedback that you get. And there will be some people saying, no, I hated it, and then there will be some people saying, no, it was good. I found what I wanted. Yeah, so it can all help a developer or someone who's maintaining that and think, okay, what do we need to do to this to make it better? If lots of people are coming back giving sort of low scores, if you like, and you think, well, what can we do to improve this to make to improve the experience for these people, for our users?
Sure. So there you go. Be curious. Have a look at websites. Critique them. Have a look at them. See what you think is good or bad about them. A couple of questions shouldn't take us too long. Then I've got a couple of questions that have been submitted whilst we've been talking. So, Jade, is web design an area of growth? Is there going to be a need for web design, or is there going to be a point where every company's got a fantastic website because you're working on it and no one needs a new one or to improve it? Or do we always need web designers?
Yeah, I think that we always need web design, and going forward, I think that people will realise that their websites need to talk more to authentic humans, and so they need to evolve. And actually, going back to Rob's comment there about forms, one of the fantastic things that you can do with a feedback form is take the terminology, take the language, take the tone of voice that your viewers are using, and actually then inject it back into the website. Talk to them like they talk to you. If someone said, oh, I blooming love this, that might be a phrase that you end up using on your website because they are your ideal client, and that's the type of vernacular that they're using. So forms are really useful, and they can inject more humanity and authenticity back into the content that's on your website. Websites need to evolve. They need to be fresh. They can't be like the Christmas decorations that live in a box in the loft and only come out once a year. Google likes websites that have regular changes, whether that be on the pages or within the blogs or within the products on your site. So there is always going to be demand for web design. Web design moves forward. So actually there's always demand on designers to learn new skills or bring new assets or functionality into websites as well. So things have changed in the last few years. A lot of people now have got courses on their website, so it's about learning about the course interface and how you can help your clients even more with a course, which actually then can bring evergreen income into your business. So that's a growing area within web design, and a lot of the different platforms are now offering that, so you can build courses out for your clients. So there's always going to be demand for virtual shop front for businesses. Yeah.
Sure. And then, I mean, we always try and make these Hertfordshire centric. So Jade, I know you're just from across the border in Bedfordshire, but I think the point with web design is that it doesn't really matter where you are. I mean, I spoke to you a couple of weeks ago and you were working from your home abroad. So is there a sort of a core hub of sort of digital designs and website designs in Hertfordshire or anywhere, or does it really just not matter?
It really doesn't matter, but what I would say that is really important is that you communicate with other designers. You actually communicate with them either on social media or meeting up with them, because finding out what problems, issues, solutions, problem solving, again, what creative answers that other people within your industry have used to solve problems is absolutely fantastic. And it's really great to hear about this new skill or this new piece of software, and actually meeting up either online like we we are now, or in person with people who may be seen as competitors, but there's a lot of work out there. It's not scary to speak to other web designers or other branding designers. It's actually fantastic. And you know, if you've got a top tip to share, great, you'll get top tips back. So it's not about, you know, hiding away in a little tower. It's about sharing, being online, and actually, you know, communicating, whether you're in a physical hub or on a social situation or in a virtual hub like this.
Great. Okay, Rob T, you presumably must see a lot of students who come onto the course thinking that they want to go into web design, but maybe by the time they finish the course, they maybe discover another area of IT or computing. Are there sort of common examples of what they might choose to go into instead, or as an alternative?
Yeah, well, because the skill set is quite similar. App development, for example, has a similar skill set to web design, because the coding part is similar, and obviously the creating of the actual visual is the same. So game design has a similar skill set as well. So generally, if you can, you know, the rule is is if you can code in one language, you'll probably be able to code in another one. So if you learn web development, front end and back end, you'll be able to then use that in other areas, in other creative areas. You could also go into less creative areas. You can go as a part of like like the content manager, or you could even like be like a back end specialist, so dealing with servers and things like that. So yeah, there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of branching out and sort of like connective paths.
For sure. I mean, Jade, you spoke about how much you enjoy working with clients. I guess there's an alternative route there into going into sort of business partnerships and relationships, just because you get so much experience, don't you, dealing with people?
I think you asked the right person there, because actually earlier this year I was actually a co-author in a book that was all about collaboration for business. It's a book called Fab Collab, and actually a lot of my business has grown because I've collaborated with other businesses. So for me, natural collaborators could be brand photographers or printers or you know, people that are creating other content like copywriters. So collaboration is a brilliant tool to actually grow a web design business, but also to grow your visibility and your reputation, because if you're part of a larger little hub, you know, more people get to see you on everybody's socials and to celebrate with you when you actually create something fantastic. Collaboration with people that are sort of around your own industry is phenomenal. Forging those relationships and growing with them is a fantastic thing to do.
For sure. Okay, great. I'm going to come on to some of the questions that have been submitted. I'm going to go back to that one that we showed right at the start that came in during the registration. I'm going to go to Rob Chambers first of all for this. So the question is, how do you, this is kind of in a couple of parts, but how do you think AI, and more importantly, AI coding tools like GitHub Copilot was an example, but there will be others, will influence coding and coder skills? So look, from a teaching perspective, how significant is AI in what you're delivering through your curriculum, and how quickly it needs to evolve?
Well, it's there. You know, Pandora's box is open if you look at with the AI tools. So yeah, they're definitely there to use. They're going to stay. They're not going to go away anywhere. So you know, there are some that are perhaps not so good, and there are some that would actually provide you with something that's quite good. Actually, write a little prompt for an AI bot and say, can you make this for me? And boom, it creates a thing for you. Most of the time, it's probably not immediately perfect. You will need to edit it and make it fit. But the one that was mentioned, the GitHub Copilot, wasn't that? Whereas I think because GitHub is a collaborative tool, so for groups of people who work together on the same software project or someone that's who could be anywhere in the world, basically, because that's the point of this whole web and this internet stuff. So the Copilot bit is basically just making adding a little bit of a AI generated code for you. So some of it is there. It won't do the whole thing. Or you could do, maybe eventually some point it will, but there's always going to need to be, as Jade was saying, there's always going to need to be someone to make that a human element, to make that something more approachable. Because a lot of us as users will look at things like that and we realize that as soon as something looks a little bit too AI to computer, we're just like, that's kind of robot-y, and I don't want to do this. A lot of the time, we do want to see the human element, and that is something we can pick up on, even if you don't realize it. That's what you're looking at, and most of us do pick up on it. But yeah, so certainly I can see it being helpful. Being like the the self-drive car things and stuff. The car doesn't drive itself yet, but you can press a button to make it park, and that's handy. It's helpful, but it doesn't drive for you. But similar thing with that. So you could have some buttons, press some prompts or whatever, and it can have it write a little bit of code for you, and then you can adapt that to the rest of your wider application to make it fit. So there's definitely use in it. And it will have impacts. We do have that. It does come up in the college, in the school. So some of the students discover this sort of stuff pretty quickly. We know it's there, and so from that one view, we don't really want to ban its use, but we also want to say, well, there's a tool that you could use, and here's how you can use it, and here's how you can use it effectively, and here's how you can use it to improve what you have done, or improve what it gave you, and to make something actually better out of it.
Sure.
Because you will.
It's like asking for help. That's kind of how I think it is. How a lot of the big AI things you have right now, it's kind of like you don't know something, and so you ask for help. You write a bit of code and you don't know what's wrong with it, or you need to expand on it, so you can ask it for help. That's kind of what the AI is as it stands. Obviously, the AI can grow, but it's some part of it's about the ethicalness of it. You can't at the moment, maybe in the future, but at the moment you can't replace the human element of computing, because especially in anything design creative, especially web design, but anything design or creative, it just doesn't look the same. No matter how much you look at it, it just seems a bit cold. And it's the same thing. You can get a client list. You can generate a client list, plug it into an AI generator, and it will do its best. But the human element is the one that can actually bring the actual design that they're after. An AI can't do that right now. And so it's been able to marry them well together. So using the AI to help you, but not to use it as a crutch, basically. That's kind of the way we kind of push it forward in academics.
Thank you. And Jade, how do you feel about AI? Is it an opportunity? Is it a threat to you as a web designer?
Not in the slightest. I absolutely love AI, and in fact I probably use ChatGPT on a daily basis, but I use it in a different way to how you may think, which is that I actually give it a prompt that is, you are this person, and I will describe an ideal client of one of my clients, and then I will interview it. What are your problems? What are your weaknesses? What's holding you back in your business? What's holding you back in your life? And I interview it as if it's one of their ideal clients. What I would say about it is that it's a really good prompt. I think that if people are creating content and they maybe need to really get their head around the subject, it's fantastic to ask AI about that subject, but then I would very much urge them to write in their own authentic words. So maybe using bullet points or prompts from ChatGPT to actually then create your own version of it, which will always be elevated than what you get out of AI, because AI is just kind of like this self-feeding force, whereas humans can innovate to the next level. As a quick aside, for my other business, I was researching something in the jewelry world, and I knew enough about the thing to know that every single word that ChatGPT gave me on this particular thing was incorrect. But you got to know, and it's the same if you're putting in a prompt, say for a piece of Python code or whatever. You've got to understand the thing well enough to know whether AI has got it right or wrong. It's not a given that it's right. This is a new tool in our world, and it's not perfect. We shouldn't rely on it. You need to have the experience and courage to know that actually it's a tool. It might go wrong. It might not give you the right answers.
Absolutely. Okay, thank you. I think you covered that subject really, really well. The other question that's come in is probably the last question I'm going to take, and it's, what are the most crucial stages of the creation of a website? So, Jade, let me come to you first of all, but Rob, James, if you want to add anything to this, then please do. So yeah, Jade, most crucial stages of the creation of a website.
Okay, so stage one is really understanding what the problem is that needs to be solved. So is it that my client has got a new product and nobody knows about it? Is it that they are forging into a different market and need to actually be visible over there? Is it that they don't have a website at all and feel that they need to have one to look more professional? Now, obviously, I'm dealing with small businesses here, but whether it's a large website or a small one, there's normally a problem. So finding out what the problem is like stage number one. Stage number two would be to say, okay, and who is this problem? Who needs to know? Who will this solve a problem for? Again, back to ideal clients. And then it's working out their journey so that you make it as simple and easy and intuitive. So this is now a navigational structure and architecture of the website. So before anything visual has happened, we have got exactly who it's for, exactly what they need to know and how they're going to find it. And then the build and design stage, actually, particularly in Squarespace, which is the platform I use, is actually quite quick to come together, particularly if I've got, all my branding ducks in a row. So the building stage takes as long as it takes because there's content and imagery to bring in, but actually that whole structure beforehand is the real powerhouse in a successful website. Once all the pages are built, then you're into testing, and then you want to be able to launch, and then it's making sure that the search engines can find it. You're using SEO. That is not something that stops when you launch a website. SEO is a whole job in itself. There are SEO specialists that will work full-time on websites. And it's then refreshing the content, making sure you've got new blog posts, new products, new comments, new this, that, and the other, and bringing your socials in. Remember, this is a platform you own, whereas socials, you're at the behest of algorithms and various different businesses. You are the master of your website. But yes, so the stages would be mainly strategy and then build, design, and out to the world.
For sure. Rob, I'm going to thank you for that answer, Jade. Rob, I'm going to ask you a different question because there's one that's just come in, which is, I'm really wanting to do graphic design at college next year. Will I be learning things that will help me go into web design on that course?
Well, yes, I would assume. I actually don't teach on that one, but yes. There would be. There certainly was a graphic element to websites, web development, web design. Even whether it's just the look of a web page, whether it's saying, oh, here's my color scheme I'm using and so on, but there will always be something graphical involved in it, and there's obviously a lot in graphic design. So how do you go about choosing it? It's the same as we were saying earlier about which user have you got, who's the user, who's going to be looking at this. Are you designing graphic images for a website that's going to attract kids, or is it a website that's going to attract older people or something or whatever? So who are your main audience and where are you aiming at? And those are certainly elements that you will be considering on a graphic design course, as well as obviously how do you use the tools to make these graphics that you're looking for.
Brilliant. Thank you for answering that. Because yeah, I know you sort of been thrown that question there and you've answered it very well. We're going to wrap up now. We're just coming up to 5:30, so we've been going the best part of an hour. So there's been some really great conversation and some really great questions that have come in, and we really hope that we've been able to help you. So if you are watching this live at the moment, be really grateful if you could just submit any feedback that you want to give us about this webinar. So anything that's helped you, perhaps whether we've helped you make a decision about your next choices, please do drop them in now. That feedback's really useful for us. Equally, if there are any other subject areas that you would like us to cover, I think from what I've heard today, I'd like to cover app design, maybe on another webinar. We've been running these webinars for the best part of 4 years now, so there's nearly 80 of them on our library on Hop. So do have a look at it. That QR code on your screen at the moment will take you through to our virtual encounters page on Hop. Do share it with your friends as well, because you may find out there's something on there that we've covered different areas. Last week we looked at careers as a personal trainer. We did prop and set design the week before that. We've got one coming up after half term on nutrition. So there's a whole range of different subject areas on this. So again, please do have a look at them. Follow our Hop signs as well to the different social media channels. So in concluding, let me thank all of you that have come home from school or college. You've watched this session live. Really appreciate that. More particularly, though, let me thank Rob from North Harts College, Jade as well, for giving up their time to share their experiences with you this afternoon. Thank you so much for being so inspirational and so informative. And we hope that there is a whole conveyor belt of fantastic web designers coming through our systems and schools in Hertfordshire. One day will be your competition, Jade, or possibly they'll be working for you as well.
All good, all good.
So thanks very much, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your evening and all the very best for your future career choices.
Okay.